Orchestra. Linda Ronstadt is arguably the most successful female pop singer of all time. Now, some might say she's also the most controversial, but putting that aside for a moment, there's hardly an area of music that hasn't been explored and conquered by this queen of pop. Even Gilbert and Sullivan recently succumbed to the Ronstadt magic when she received raves for her performance in The Pirates of Penzance. Her latest effort is a highly acclaimed, big-selling album, this one here, called What's New? And the music is arranged by Nelson Riddle, the 62-year-old maestro who created all those velvety sounds for Frank Sinatra 25 or 30 years ago. And some of those songs are on this album. It's a highly unlikely combination, Ronstadt and Riddle, but an unqualified success. Now here's a track, in fact the title track from this album, showing her new style. Have a look.
What's new? How is the world treating you? You haven't changed a bit. Handsome as ever, I must admit. What's new? How did that romance come through? We haven't met since then. Gee, but it's nice to see you again.
There you got it. That's Linda Ronstadt. That's the new track from the album. Boy, I'll tell you, there's that kind of music conjures up some memories for me. Would you greet from Los Angeles, please, Linda Ronstadt, the one, the only, and the original. There it is. Hi. Oh, yes. They love you down here. Linda, welcome to Australia, even if it is by satellite. You've been here live, I know, but we have to settle for this way, and I am pleased that you had the time to join us. Tell me about that album now. This is certainly a long way from rock and a big departure for Linda Ronstadt.
How come you sound so controversial?
What? Is that controversial?
I didn't know that I was so controversial.
Well, I'm talking about that. Well, I don't want to get onto that subject yet, but I will if we
Okay.
want to get onto it in a little while. No, okay.
I don't know which subject that is, but at any rate, go ahead.
All right. Well, tell me about the album now. It's a departure
I'll
from
ask you
rock.
later.
Okay.
It's a departure. Yes, it is. Gee, I don't know what to say. I love the songs. I've known most of them. I've known all my life, and I just wanted to sing them very badly, and it kept seeming like there was no particular market for me to sing them to. And people kept saying, oh, you're a rock and roll singer, why do you want to sing that? But I finally just realized, why not? You know, I might as well. I've made all these albums, and they've had, you know, varying degrees of success, so I didn't feel like it was being exactly self-indulgent to do it. You know, they're good songs that have sort of proven themselves over time.
You used to listen to this.
So I just decided to do it.
From what I understand, you used to listen to this kind of music with your ear pressed to a radio when you were a little girl in Tucson.
I didn't listen to this kind of music with my ears pressed to the radio. I listened to rock and roll with my ear pressed to the radio. I listened to this kind of music with my ear pressed to the phonograph machine, because my father had a lot of these records, and they still played some of this stuff on the radio when I was little. But I was born in 1946, so by the time I was really listening hard to the radio, which was about 1950, 1952, rock and roll was starting to crop up a little bit.
How'd you get along with Nelson Riddle? Was there any concern when you first went in to do it?
None. I mean, my only concern was whether he would say, "Are you kidding?" and slam down the phone when I called him up, because he's not known to have a great deal of fondness for rock and roll. So I figured he might think I was some rock and roll upstart that he wasn't interested in working with. but as it turns out, he was very interested in working with me. And when our first meeting was just an incredible success. I mean, we just adored each other right away. And when I gave him the list of tunes that I wanted to do, he was real excited about it. We ran to the piano like two little kids, and we started fooling around with arrangements, you know. So it was just great.
Do you work with him now in your live performances?
Oh, yes, he comes and conducts the orchestra for me. And he's a lovely man, you know, he has a wonderfully sardonic sense of humor, extremely bright, very articulate. You know, he's just a neat guy, full of wonderful stories, too. He knows some good stories, let me tell you.
He must
He's got all the dish from, you know, the 40s and 30s.
Oh, boy, I'd love to hear that myself
And
sometime.
50s.
Was Nelson Riddle with you when you worked at Radio City Music Hall? I bring Radio City Music Hall up because the only time I heard of an act going in there was our own Peter Allen, who was talking about going in and doing the show. And now all of a sudden I read about Linda Ronstadt going in. I mean, we're a great distance away, so I wasn't aware that you had done it. It must have been exciting, Radio City Music Hall.
It was very exciting, especially because of the fact that we weren't allowed to rehearse the show, and there were a lot of moves in it. You know, it had a lot of stage moves. You know, Radio City's a very complicated place. It's all operated with hydraulics. Half the stage will go up, you know, 4 or 5 stories. The orchestra was on a great big trolley that moved out of a pit and up above behind me. I mean, it was amazing. I was afraid I was going to get hit by half the stage half the time. You know, it would have been like getting hit by a train.
Yeah.
But it was really fun, and the audience was great, and they really liked it. So. It was great.
Linda, we were looking at that film clip just now. The realization sort of hit me. Not only do you have to go into a studio now and put in all of that time in doing a recording, but once you finish the recording, I guess the rest of your work has just isn't even over. The big work has begun. You have to go and then do film clips now.
Do videos. I know, but you know, I thought about videos from the very first the very first time I heard the playback of the orchestrated version of What's New, which was the first thing that we recorded. It just sounded, because Nelson has worked so much in film, and a lot of his stuff really sounds like, he really paints, you know, scenery, sound scenery behind the songs. His arrangements are very visual to me, and they're very evocative on a visual level. So I was just real keen on making videos from this as soon as I started listening to what the arrangement sounded like.
When we talked about being controversial before, what I meant was that I felt there was an unfair emphasis towards wild parties and flings with drugs and things like that that were reported about with Linda Ronstadt. And in ensuing interviews I have read, you have denied that. You've said that it's overly exaggerated and a beat up by the media. Now that's what I meant by controversy.
I don't think I've ever been to a wild party. I hardly ever go to parties to start with. I'm not very social. I don't like parties very much. But I mean, the idea of a wild party is funny.
Yeah.
I'm about as conservative as they come. Not politically conservative, but in my life, I'm very conservative.
But why did the media want to beat that thing up like that? That's the thing that bothered me.
Because they have to have something to write about. You know, it's the old idea, if there's no news that day, make some up.
Yeah.
And for some reason, they got an idea that I would be good media hype. I don't know why. You know, it's sort of like, I met Jackie Onassis one time, who was a very, very charming lady. And after talking to her, I realized that she had never done an interview since her husband was killed.
Wow.
You know, in all these 20 years, whatever it's been since he's dead, she's never really done an interview. So you have to consider that every single word that's been printed about her since then, and you read about stuff about her every day, it's been conjecture or flat-out fabrication, you know. So people make stuff up all the time. I don't go, you know, I don't go to parties.
And it's also funny how the written word also can be construed the way the person that's reading it wants to construe it, as opposed to the spoken word, I mean. When you speak and say something, people understand what you mean, but when they read it, they can read their own interpretation into it.
It's also a continual source of amazement to me that people actually believe it. I don't believe much of anything I read anymore. The press have been so irresponsible that they have destroyed their own credibility to a great degree. But it's amazing to me that people read, you know, stuff in People magazine or the National Enquirer. Your press down there is really, I mean, you gave us Rupert Murdoch. Yeah, the most horrible man in the world. Thanks a lot. No, you're American, I forgot.
Yeah, no, I've been here 18
Australia
years.
gave us Rupert Murdoch. Thanks a lot, you guys. Take him back. We don't need him here.
Well, you know, when you get those, he's the king of the rags, actually.
And he's very irresponsible too, you know. I mean, you see these screaming headlines in his newspapers about politics or about a shooting or a killing that are only made to inflame, you know, terror and horror, and it drives me crazy. It's plain all irresponsible. That's all it is, you know.
Yeah, good on you. I'm
And
glad.
it's bad for journalism. It's bad for journalism. It's bad for the responsible journalists that are out there trying to do their job, you know.
Did you have much of a problem when you were with Jerry Brown, people expecting you to have political views along the lines of Governor Brown's, or expecting you to expound political views, whereas, I mean, you're a singer, he's a politician?
Our relationship was completely personal. It wasn't political at all. So, you know, he did politics, I did music.
Right.
It's easy to separate that.
Now, tell me about the Pirates of Penzance. There was another departure. I mean, nobody in the world would have expected that it was going to be, you were going to get as terrific reviews as you did. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of them probably were licking their chops saying, oh, we'll nail her now, you know. But it must have been a great experience.
It was a wonderful experience. People don't realize when somebody's a singer that through all their whole life you know, I was a singer when I was 2, as far as I was concerned. That's all I liked was music, and I walked around singing all the time. And I was real interested in lots of different kinds of music, and people don't realize that most singers, if you pin them down, if you put Mick Jagger into a corner and asked him about all the different kinds of music that he knew about, you'd be probably amazed to find out that he knew about Balinese gong music or something. I mean, whatever. I mean, he's amazingly, you know, knowledgeable and has very Catholic taste in music. And most musicians are like that, you know. You'll find out that they know a lot about, you know, I don't know, Irish traditional music or Eskimo music, whatever. And it's just all this stuff that you hear all your life when you're growing up just goes into your head, and you can reach into that it becomes a resource, you know, that you can draw from at different parts of your life.
Yeah, you're interested in all sorts of music, of course, the way you speak. You went to South Africa recently. 2 questions here. Did you receive criticism for going to South Africa? And secondly, I understand you were quite impressed by the music that you heard there.
I was very impressed with the music that I heard there. You know, it's amazing. It had very little impact here in the United States. About the only people that even raised an eyebrow were Rolling Stone, which I considered the height of hypocrisy, since they don't turn down any of their advertising subscribers, you know, that have companies, you know, Revlon, a lot of other companies that are located down in South Africa. To me, and they screamed and hollered about the money. I mean, I didn't get paid any more for going there than I get paid for going to the United States. And I would certainly expect to be paid for flying 80 hours, you know, to go all the way down to Africa. As far as I was concerned, it was just a gig. I don't think that if you disagree with the policies of the government, which I do very definitely disagree with the policies of the South African government, I don't think that's enough of a reason not to go and play music there. If I did that, I wouldn't be able to play in the United States because I don't agree with their policies about nuclear power or nuclear warfare or invading, you know, Grenada, or their hopes to invade Nicaragua. I hope they don't do that. I mean, my God, we've got this person running the country, you know, that I completely disagree with. It doesn't mean that I have to stop playing concerts in the United States. And if I decided that I wasn't going to play where attitudes of racism prevailed, I certainly couldn't play in Australia or England or lots of places in the United States, a lot of places in the American South, or Boston, which is extremely racist. You know, they're having all the controversy about busing. So where do you draw the line? And if it was someplace where the government was terrible to black people, I couldn't go to Uganda. You know, if I wanted to go to Uganda or Tanzania, which has more political prisoners than South Africa, nobody would raise an eyebrow. They just sort of go, oh my goodness, she's going to Tanzania. Or if I wanted to go to Russia, which is a fascist, repressive government, people would say, oh, she's trying to communicate, you know. I went to South Africa. It has a fascist, repressive government. I'm very interested in the culture down there. And to me, it was an incredible opportunity to learn, to hear I heard some great Zulu music down there, which is incredible. I heard that band Jaluka, which is a great band. And
well, see, you just got finished talking. You say, why does anyone think I'm controversial? Do you realize what you've just talked about here? We've just received all your political views in one blow. I'm teasing. I'm not putting it down, honestly.
I don't think my political views are very controversial. Who likes nuclear warfare, you know?
Yeah, that's true. I agree.
And who likes racism?
People say you're more secure now than you used to be. Do you feel that way?
No, I think I'm just about like I've always been. It's just that, I mean, I'm telling you, people make stuff up. I mean, women's magazines come and interview me, and they ask me, you know, this and that and the other thing, and I answer. Then they go off and they write exactly, you know, they write me as this lonely, miserable, wretched person, which is not true. I have a real nice family. I've got lots of friends. We have a whoopee good time. I have my share of troubles just like everybody else does, but, you know, I wouldn't be normal if I didn't.
What's the next project, Linda?
My next project, well, I'd like to make another album with Nelson. There's so many good songs that I left sort of untouched. in selecting tunes for this album. And also, there's something that I've always wanted to do, which is make a Latin album, all in Spanish, because I come from a Mexican family. My father who's had a great influence on me. Mexican-German, yeah.
Right,
but
yeah.
my father sang more in Spanish than he did in English, you know, and I learned a lot of songs in Spanish. And I just feel like, I don't know, the whole Latin thing is just so important right now, the relationship of the United States to Latin America, which has always been a disaster. And it's something I'd like to learn more about, and I've just always wanted to sing that music. I love that music. I think in some ways it's the future of pop music, Latin music.
Linda, they've given me the signal here that I have to leave. I really don't want to. I'm having the best time listening to you. It's been terrific. Really nice.
Well, good.
Well, thank you very much.
I wish I could see you.
Well, maybe
I'll
someday.
have someone describe you.
Maybe someday we'll meet face to face. You never know. I thank you very, very much for joining us, and really good luck with the album. It's some of my favorite music from a favorite era, and it's wonderful to hear someone like yourself doing it. Just terrific. And
I'm really glad you like it.
okay, congratulations, and we'll see you soon, I'm sure, someplace, sometime. Thank you very much for joining us. Linda Ronstadt, everybody.
Thank you.
All the way from Los Angeles. Linda Ronstadt. It's too bad she's not controversial. We're going to have some comics coming up for you. Brian Doyle, Paul Martell, Tim Evans going to have some laughs. Hang in there. We'll be back.